Well, hello there, and welcome to the Dana Spencer Show, where we talk about solving problems, building relationships, quitting corporate, and the freedom to walk in our God given purpose. So, how are we feeling today? I hope you are feeling amazing. You've got the activity of your limbs. This is the day that the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And I hope you're super glad today because I am glad because I have an amazing guest with me here today. So give a warm welcome to Mr. Anthony Richardson. Welcome to the Dana Spencer Show, Anthony Richardson. How are we feeling today?
Beautiful. I say to some people, I'm alive and well, so that beats the alternative. So it's another day to create more opportunities.
Absolutely. I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, and I know you are a busy man, so I'm not going to waste your time. So, we're going to just jump right in. So,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
tell me, Anthony, as a little boy, what was it that you wanted to be when you grew up?
A professional football player in the NFL.
A
Yes, ma'am.
professional football player in the NFL. Awesome. So, did that become a reality or was there a pivot?
It did not. It definitely was a pivot. I did not achieve that dream. My career ended. I'll say effectively at college once I graduated from Kentucky State. I played a little bit of arena ball, and I just didn't like arena ball. I felt like it wasn't football for me. So that was when I decided to pivot from that standpoint and start my journey as an adult and a professional.
All right, so we're gonna have to back it up just a little bit. So you went to Kentucky State, but before that, what high school did you go to?
I started out at Male, so I went to Male for 2 years, and then I went to PRP for my last 2 years of high school.
Okay, and so I've heard. So, and one more question: what middle school did you go to?
Barrett Traditional.
Okay, so you had the traditional program. So when you got to Male, did you not get along with that traditional program, or what happened at Male?
I could give a whole lot of, I would say, examples or excuses, depends on how you want to look at it. Um, the More or less that I was a class clown, and being one of the bigger kids in the school, and that means literally. So it was like easy for me to be identified when everybody was acting up. Let me say that, and it wasn't, other than class clown joking, that type of stuff. I mean, I was fine, but there was me and the new principal at the time just couldn't get along. Like, I'm a bigger dude, so if my shirt was bloused out a little bit, tucked in but bloused out, like I would get written up and stuff like that. So at the end of my sophomore year, and they put me on academic and behavior probation. And I felt like it was a smack in the face because there was an incident with one of the teachers not um, recording reporting the accurate grades. And when I took my mother up to school for a parent teacher conference, like that was identified. So, we felt like we were done wrong. They righted the wrong with the grades, but nonetheless, I felt like it was a little smack in the face. So I went to PRP. That was my home school.
Okay, and what position did you play?
Defensive tackle. At high school, defensive tackle, offensive line, and I played a little bit of fullback as well.
So, how important is it to be able to play both sides of the ball?
I believe it's real important because you get to learn. I tell the kids, you learn the cheat code. If I'm a defensive lineman and I understand the mind of an offensive lineman, I should be able to kind of get an inkling of what's coming, get some stuff like pre-snap reads, understanding leverage, how they're trying to block, so how I can defeat the block. So you get the cheat code to the test.
Yeah, I love that. The cheat code to the test. I don't know.
Mhm.
That may even be the name of this episode. The cheat code to the test.
I mean, but that just that mindset. You're getting the knowledge before you're getting tested. If I understand how somebody's going to try to attack me or try to defeat me, I should mentally have the upper hand.
So when you went to PRP, how was that transition going from, Male that was very traditional, very strict, very tuck your shirt in
Yeah.
to PRP, which I don't know a lot about PRP, but I'm guessing that it's not as traditional as Male was.
No, it definitely is not. And the crazy thing is, I've always been until college, well, even a little bit of college, I've always been a traditional underachiever via academics. And that was really because of will. Like I did enough to get by. I knew there was a threshold I had to maintain to be eligible to play sports. So like I teetered around that 2.0. Definitely more intelligent than my effort. But I didn't learn that until effort supersedes skill and will until pretty much my sophomore year in college. But going from male to PRP was rigorous with the amount of work and kind of the intensity of it. I wouldn't say the work itself was hard. It was how to manage it, how to keep up, how to prioritize time management and things like that. At PRP had regular classes. And when I say they had regular, honors, and then advanced classes. After about a semester in regular classes, I went to my counselor and asked them to put me in the honors classes for a little bit more challenge. Now, the honors classes at PRP was equivalent to the rigor of males' regular classes. So I just knew I wasn't getting better, internally. And then a lot of those kids at PRP, they were just coming to school. It wasn't a backpack, it wasn't a book. They pretty much people would bring cigarettes and lighters, like that was their, and kind of hanging out in the courtyard and stuff like that. So it wasn't a culture shock, but it was a a little bit of an adjustment in the opposite direction at PRP.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. But then I love how you were able to self-evaluate, and that's difficult for a lot of people to do. You recognize the fact that you're like, you know what? I usually am just teeter-tottering about this 2.0, but I still need a little bit more of a challenge. What would you say to those who are not able to self-evaluate?
My best recommendation, like for someone that can't evaluate themselves, would be really find an accountability partner, somebody you truly trust their opinion, good, bad, and ugly, because we all can do better in any given situation. And without you being able to recognize that yourself, you got to have somebody you trust that can, because just life is about continuously elevating.
Yeah. And so I've heard some really amazing things about Kentucky State University. I was interviewing, shout out to LaQuinta Farmer, who was
Yeah,
had
yeah,
nothing but amazing things to say about Kentucky State.
yeah.
How did you get recruited to go to Kentucky State?
So I don't know if you just realized what you just did, but LaQuinta Farmer.
Oh wow,
He's
I did it. I did
Yeah.
it.
No, so the quick backstory about that. So I met at that time Coach Farmer. Now it's LaQuinta. He's my big brother now. But when in 2003 in the All-Star game I played in, he was a coach. He was one of the defensive coaches. And he was a whole lot, we were a lot younger. He was fresh, like out of college, maybe a couple years removed. So he still had that high energy of a player. And I don't know how much you heard about him, but he's an All-American guy. And barring a knee injury, everybody that I've met said he would have been in the NFL if he didn't blow his knee out like his senior year at K-State. But so the way he was coaching and his aggression and all that type of stuff, he like my father loved it and knew I was going to college. Like my dream was to play in the NFL, so I knew my goals, my stepping stone. So my father started paying him to train me going into my freshman year in college. But I went away to Moorhead first. Came I didn't like it there. It was now that was a culture shock. And I've been there recently. The city's built up, but nonetheless, it was very rural and nothing to do. Walmart and like Blockbuster, and that was it. And I I went and written videos 2 or 3 times a week, and it was boring. Nonetheless, so I really transferred back home because I was recruited as like a preferred walk on at U of L. And that was my goal, to play at U of L. So Moorhead, I was a Prop 48 because when I graduated high school, my grades was I think I graduated with like a 2.3 GPA and like a 19 on my ACT. So I went from Moorhead, unenrolled there. I thought I was going to be able to transition into U of L, but I had to go to JCC to complete my freshman year. Then I get into U of L, and that's fall of 2004. So I graduated high school fall of 2000, or in 2003. So fall of 2004, get there. I'm on the team practice squad, and I'm just living. I'm home. I made it to my dream, and I'm partying. And I end up at the end of the first semester with a .7 GPA. Right. I hadn't learned my lesson yet. So then that made me ineligible to practice in the spring. So fast forward, I take all and throughout the spring and the first 2 summer sessions, I retake all the classes I got D's in, and then take some more classes. So like I was full, like I had I think 18 hours in the summer, um, just to get my grades like back up or to erase some of those low grades. I end up getting up to a 2.7 by the end of the second summer semester, and then basically U of L didn't see the value in me because I had prolonged my, getting ready and being eligible. So for them, it was kind of like on to the next guy. So I I was invited to come when school started, but for me, I felt like that would have put me behind the curve, or behind the 8 ball rather, missing all of the summer practices. So the end comes, and I've been maintaining my relationship with LaCunta, and then they had new coaching staff coming into K State. So Kunta, my father, and my uncle, we all went down one day in the summer to meet the coaches. And all the coaches, out of all the rings they've had as players and coaches, they have 41 championship rings on this table. So, to me, I literally said in my head, okay, these guys know football. It's close to home, so my parents will be able to come see me, because that was huge, and that's also why I wanted to play at U of L. I had a scholarship opportunity to go to FAMU when leaving Louisville, but that's an 11-hour drive. My mother in 2001 had a back surgery to have a rod and 6 screws put in her back, which made her disabled. So transportation to and from would have been difficult, and we weren't rich by no means. So flying, definitely wasn't too much of an option. So that kind of eliminated those other options. And so that's how I ended up at Kentucky State.
Wow. I love that. So, here on the Dana Spencer Show, we talk about building relationships, and you just exemplify how important it is. So, what would you say to people who are out there just got their AirPods in and are not trying to build relationships? How critical is it to have relationships with the people who are potentially where you're trying to go?
I think it's very critical and imperative. Just for the simple fact that you never know when you'll need something or somebody that you don't have or they have access to. Just from the standpoint of just, I don't know, needing people. Like, I get everybody wants to be self-made and I did this on my own, but in reality, I don't think there's too many people who's did anything without the help of others. Now, in this new day and age where technology and AI, like you could probably start a business and be successful without dealing with people in general. But I just think to prosper and go far, you need to do it, um, or you need others to help you do it.
Yeah, and life is a team sport. Like it's
Hmm.
I know there are people who are, a little bit introverted and don't really feel like they need people, but life is a contact sport. Life is a team. Like we need other people. It's just we just do. And I feel bad for people who don't prioritize relationships. But I
Right.
wanted to stop by that point that you made about playing in front of your family.
Hmm.
Why was it so important to you to be able to play in front of your family?
I'm still kind of evaluating stuff like that. I honestly can't say there's one thing. I wanted to. I know I wanted to hear my name on the PA system after making a tackle, making a sack, and being able to hear, feel, see your family being proud of you. So that's one thing too. Like I do know this. Like I want it's my mother and my father's passed away now, and like my grandparents and my aunts and uncles. like to be able to look at me and say, okay, he's done something with himself, or we're proud of him. Like, so a lot of times I feel like I'm doing what I do for the others. So they feel like what the work they've done in their life, it paid off for me. So I mean, I think that's a piece of it, but I'm still trying to flush out that, type thing. But those are that's a core piece of it.
Yeah, and I think about athletes all the time. So, like, University of Louisville, people are from Florida and all over the country, and what it's like for them not to have, everybody's not going to be able to travel to every game. What it's
Right.
like for them to be such a good player. And I mean, there's U of L has a nice fan base. Don't get me wrong, and most institutions probably do, but ain't nothing like your mama and your daddy in the stands.
I agree. I mean, I agree. I grew up, my father was pretty much my coach up until high school. So he was always there. He was always heavily correcting me. um, but and my mother was supportive. Like she knows football because me and my brother played, but she doesn't know football. Like I know times where I think they were recording that All-Star game I was talking about, that where I met Coach Farmer. My either my mother or father was recording, but my mother was like yelling, go score or something like that. And my father was like, they're on defense. Like, so she's always been supportive, but and so that stuff, it really means something, but that also drives me, as a father to make sure I am visible and present for my kids.
Yeah. And then at one point you said that your father actually paid for you to have training.
Correct.
So this day and age with all of the AAU teams and all of this, what if you can't afford for someone to train your child? What can a parent do?
So like what we do with inside the lines training, like if a parent does not have the money, we've never turned a person away from money. Never. And I never will. Like we'll reach out to people and say, hey, this kid, for $250, this kid will get 16 sessions with inside the lines. Half of them will be academic sessions, half of them will be athletic enrichment. So, if it's basketball, football, overall strength and conditioning, we will reach out to the community and get those resources. And if not, I mean, we'll just leave it up to God. But fortunately, I believe my network is strong enough. If there was a kid in need, we've always proven that we'll make a way for them. So, it is, and I get it. Some people are running businesses and they can't afford. We're running a business too, but that's why we made it a nonprofit organization, so that we can get the community support to make sure the kids have what they need.
Okay. And so what happened after you left K State?
Left K State, was trying to obviously make it into the draft. That didn't happen. Agent found me an opportunity to go out into Billings, Montana, to play for it was like the Division II or #1 arena football team. I think it was Billings Outlaws or Montana Outlaws, one of the two. But I was out there for a couple weeks, and it just wasn't. I mean, no disrespect to anybody, but arena football is not football to me. Like it wasn't. It wasn't enough, and so I quit. That was probably the first thing in my life I've ever quit.
Mm.
And it was just literally, I mean, we were living and I'm not saying it was a Motel 8, but something like that. Like the owner of the team kind of owned the whole thing. So we lived in there. I wasn't happy. And it wasn't what I thought it would be. So I literally told the coach, like, this ain't for me. And I think I was out there for about 10 days and then I flew home. And that pretty much was it. I got drafted into, it was like a startup league where it was like 12 teams. Like I got drafted to the Birmingham, Alabama team, me and one of my high school buddies. And like a week before we were supposed to arrive and they were sending all the information and stuff, the league folded because they didn't have enough money. So that pretty much was the opportunity I had. I had a tryout in Cincinnati. It was kind of a farm team that fed into them, and there were scouts there. Had a pretty good tryout, and I ruptured my MCL literally like the last two plays of the tryout. So I had to drive back to Louisville with a burning knee. Um, just to get back to my doctor's in Lexington to schedule my surgery. So that was kind of it. That had been my fifth knee surgery. So I just knew, I was damaged goods, and so it was time to move on with life.
So did you graduate from Kentucky State? Did you always have like a plan B? Because here's the thing, do you like go all in for your dream of being in the NFL, or do you like, you know what, let me go on and get this degree just in case I blow out my knee or something happens? Like, how do you feel about that? Which path do you think?
I always have I hate. I'm really trying to figure out a new way to reframe this, because a plan B sounds like I don't fully believe in plan A,
I
and
know.
it also depends on who you're talking to and the philosophy and their finagle with words and stuff like that. I always have. I have a personal motto. I hope for the best and plan for the worst, because I feel like if I plan for the worst, I'm not too let down if it happens. But some people will say, "Well, you're planning to fail if you're planning for the worst." Tomato, tomato. But I always once I got. Let me go back. I knew I needed to go to college to make it to the NFL. I figured while I'm here, let's reap the benefits of, said venture. I'm in college. Let's graduate. And also, I knew I had a longer shot than most to make it. Um, being undersized, not as fast as they want somebody my size to be, coming from a Division II school that's very small. I knew all those things were going to hinder me. So I just always knew I needed a plan B. And if nothing else, when was done playing sports, what will I do? So, it kind of was getting my degree it wasn't the focal point, but it was a byproduct of my dream.
Yeah. And yeah, that's good. That's so good. So you don't make it to the NFL and you don't like the arena football, and now you have to figure out, what do I want to do with my life?
Yeah.
What did that look like for you?
Um, I'm with what I know now, probably about it was emotional, intelligence. I was going through depression. I would graduated. I knew I was talented enough to make it. I had enough coaches and people tell me. I felt like I didn't get all of the right opportunity, and I also I didn't take advantage of some of the opportunities I had. Um, so I was going through a little bit of depression, after going out in Montana and the tryouts and here and there. I probably hit depression for about a year and a half. I walked across the stage May of 2009, with my criminal justice degree, a bachelor's. Had no idea what I was going to do because football was it. And I remember being back just in my neighborhood, and one of my buddies, we were just talking, and he was like, "Man, I just knew you was going to make it to the NFL." So for him, it was like a compliment, giving me praise. For me, it was reiterating I failed.
Mm.
So it was tough. So then in 2010, I just get a job. I'm applying. For the first time ever, people were telling me I was overqualified for the jobs I was trying to get. And I'm like, I just need a job. I'll never, I had a phone interview with, like, I think it's like a telemarketing company or something. And at the end of the interview, the person was like, "You did well. I want to offer you the job, but you're not going to stay here. And so there's no point in me hiring you knowing you're going to leave. Like, you're overqualified for this position." And I was like, "Thank you, but no thank." Like, I don't know how to take that. But anywho, so I end up getting a job with the Cabinet of Health and Family Services as an investigator for Child Protective Services. So I did that for a while. I went and start coaching at Doss, where LaCunta was the head coach. So I just kind of fell in love with helping kids try to reach their goal, their passion. And being a CPS worker, you see a lot of kids needing guidance. It wasn't always the parent abused the kid, and it was just dynamics of life. And then sometimes the kids wasn't doing their part. Just go to school. If you're going to play sports, like, let's try hard and learn the attributes from sports that can make you a better person. not just a better athlete. So I end up, when she was my girlfriend at the time, now it's my wife, when she told me she was pregnant with our first child, I was like, all right, I don't want to live on a $30,000 salary, and raise a family. Like, this is not going to be comfortable in life. Um, so I got back into school to get my master's at Georgetown College, so I can become a teacher. So that was my next move. So I did 3 years, and I worked at CPS as I was completing my master's, and then I started working at JCPS as a teacher in, I believe, 2013, September 9th of 2013. So that's kind of how that happened. So just all of that just coming together, noticing these kids needed very much educational support, like mentorship, and then some type of, athletic training, but also teaching you some of the nuances of your sport or your position, helping you mentally, not just, again, get bigger, stronger, faster, but mentally getting better. And that's kind of how it just grew into God telling me I needed to create inside the lines training. I was traveling around with a couple different companies doing training, all over from the East Coast to, the other states in the Midwest. And it just kind of happened, for me to be here. I can't really tell you there was an aha moment. It was just a culmination of a lot of different things.
Yeah, and before we go into inside the lines, I believe a lot of athletes probably struggle with depression.
Hmm.
So, what are some of the tips that you would be able to offer to help them to overcome? Because obviously, you are an overcomer and you got past it. Can you think of a couple of things that you were able to do in order to get through it?
I think the first, have somebody to talk to that loves you and that you trust. And I know there may not be possible for everyone, but you can always find somebody to talk to, and you can grow that trust. The catalyst of me kind of shifting the needle from depression, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. Who am I past my sport of choice? Like, I've always had an identity and a nickname of Hulk and playing football, but like now I have to be Anthony Richardson and grow up. I'll never forget, we were going to see family. It was me, my father, and my now is my wife. I was her Danielle. She was pregnant. We were going to see family in Indianapolis. We were on the highway and we were kind of talking sports. And I just clearly asked my father, like, he's always been my coach. He's always been extremely hard on me, but he's always told me the truth. Said, do you think I had what it took to play in the NFL? And without a hesitation, I mean, as he was driving, he looked at me and was like, absolutely. Like, kind of, he looked at me kind of like that was a dumb question. But that's kind of how I felt. And this was about 2 years after me, having my last surgery. And I knew football was over, but I kind of mentally needed to move on from it. And that was the start of it. Me hearing his approval, whether I played or not, like him validating my ticket was like, all right, cool. Now I can get out of this parking garage where I feel like I've just been sitting, just kind of. So that was the start of it. So I would say, like, you definitely find somebody to talk to, counselor, therapist, friend, aunt, mom, dad, sister, cousin, whoever, because we all struggle mentally at times, and especially now and where this world is, like, we all have stuff that needs to be processed, and then the more they tell us to focus on mental health, the more we think about our mental health. So then there's more stuff to process. So just find somebody to talk to and that you can be vulnerable with. And that's a whole lot easier said than done, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, because we don't even like the word vulnerable, right?
Mhm.
Because it's hard. Why do you think it's so hard to be vulnerable?
Because you expose yourself, like who you really are. And I think a lot of people struggle mentally with a lot of things because they don't expose themselves. But on the flip side, there are people that will take advantage of you if you expose yourself. So you have to have some discernment on what levels to go to with who. Like, you know, I can be completely vulnerable with this person. This one, I can be vulnerable in specific topics and things like that. So it's it I mean, nobody wants to be taken advantage of. So I think we feel like the more vulnerable we are, the more we'll be taken advantage of.
Yeah. And you talked about, the relationship that you had with your dad and how important, how hard he was on you. I don't know the statistics, but so many young men are growing up without their fathers. So, what if there's a young man out there who's listening and they don't have their father in their life? Like, what are some things that you could tell them to encourage them on their journey?
Find a big brother. Um, I mean, I there is no substitute for your dad, but you can get the same value from a substitute. And I've had the luxury. I lived until I think I was 35 when he passed, maybe 36. I had that luxury of having my father being my, rock, even with all of his flaws. But you can still get that value in people. Like LaCunta is one of my guys. Like if I need to, and I've done it before, I'll call him and have a vulnerable conversation. Just because from all intents purposes, our lives in a lot of ways mirror each other. We're fathers, we're coaches, we're husbands, we're leaders in the community. So those type of things like align. So find somebody who is either living your dream or walking the same path trying to live their dream. And you got to figure it out. Sitting in silence and just hovering in place, it will never get us anywhere.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. So, in terms of inside the lines, tell us about this.
Inside the lines is, in a nutshell, I mean, you've heard some of the past, of my past and my mistakes and flaws. I kind of put all of my success and failures into a program and trying to give them to youth who say they want to go where I've seen, where I've attempted to be. And again, just give I tell the kids, we give them what you need while you think you're getting here, what you're getting. When you're here, you get what you want. So, everybody wants to be the best basketball player or football player or, in their sport. But it's, do I have self-control? Do I have accountability? Do I have respect? Do I have, leadership skills? Can I be the best version of me in a pressure situation? So like we want to put all of those things, and like our one of our core values is, who will you be when your career is over? When the ball stops bouncing and the football stops flying, who will you be? Um, I'm a huge confidence guy. And when I say that, I'm a confident person, and I want kids to believe in themselves. And so like I just put all that into a program that I'm still, critiquing and developing and trying to get better daily. But that is what inside the lines is. Inside the lines is to kids. It's tutoring, training, and mentoring all under one roof. And I'm proud to say there is no other organization in this city that does all three. They may say it, and I've done my research, and I know a lot of people, but there's no organization that does all three with fidelity.
Yeah. So what if a mom or a dad or somebody is out there watching and they're like, man, I would love to get my young person into the program. How can they find out more and connect with you?
So I'll start with the website. It is itltraining.org. You can find us on all social media, Inside the Lines Training at Gmail, or I'm sorry, Inside the Lines Training. You can email us at inside the lines training at Gmail. You can call us at 502-298-4409. And just, connect, support, reach out. You got questions, how it works, what we do in general. But we're after school tutoring predominantly Monday through Thursday, 4 to 8 o'clock. um we just try to get kids in the building, and my goal daily is to have 50 kids come in our building, whether they're doing basketball training, whether they're doing football training, strength and conditioning, tutoring, anything like that. And we infuse mentorship in all of it. It's not just, hey, dribble the ball fast down the court. It is also concepts that we relate to life, like being able to adjust and pivot. Those things, yes, it's an action on the basketball court, but it is also something you have to do in life, because there's going to be roadblocks, there's going to be barriers. I don't have to stop going forward. I just have to redirect to get around this obstacle just to get back on my path. And so we always use those opportunities and have kids write down goals. Like, why are you here today? To get better. What to get better at what? Being more specific. Because the reality is there's a lot of adults my age, older, younger, whatever, that they don't know how to plan and set goals and actually go reach them. I actually learned in a leadership workshop this past weekend. Um, a goal is just hope unless it has attainable measures within it. So SMART goals. Um, and I kind of challenged that theory. I'm like, but he gave an analogy. I was like, if I say I want to buy a house, is that a goal? He's like, it's a hope until you go get pre-approved and say, I want to buy a house within the next 6 to 9 months and start looking at, and doing those things. It is just hope. And I was like, that's powerful. So helping kids break down their goal. All right, my goal is to make to the NFL. Okay, you're 9. We can't, that's not going to happen next year. So what do we need to do to get there? Yes. And let's work backwards. We got to go to college. Oh, to get in college, we got to have grades. I got to have grades. I got to be able to comprehend, read, the literacy, adding, subtracting, multiplying, quadratic equations, whatever it is. We got to learn to play the game. No matter if we like the system or not, you got to play the game right to get to where you want to be. So just teaching those type of skills. So people can, like I said, contact us, go to the website, itltraining.org. You can send like a contact us, message on there. You can email me inside the lines training at Gmail, 502-298-4409. Just tap in with us. And that also goes for people who want to work, volunteer. We need board members, committee members. Like, we got a lot of stuff going on, and I need a team. Luckily, I was able to this year fundraise enough to get a program director on salary. So like, we're working through that, trying to build and grow, but it just takes, people to really affect change in the way we want to.
Yeah. So other than, and you said one thing, pivoting is one of the things that you learn on the court that has to, come over into everyday life. What are some other skill sets that you have been able to learn from the sport that you have brought over into your everyday life?
Leadership, obviously. Like, my last 2 years, I was defensive captain, MVP on defense. So like, being understanding accountability, and I can't require you to elevate your game if I'm not doing so. If I'm not doing my part, how can I ask you? So that's kind of like integrity. And that goes into like fatherhood, marriage, those type of things. Just, I tell the kids, listen, you're gonna get verbally assaulted when you go to college by a coach. Like, he's gonna talk bad to you, cuss you out, all of that. Like, it's just, it's a part of the culture. And it's not personal. Well, I don't think it's personal all the time. Sometimes I'm sure it could be for the coaches. But if I can wake up at 6 a.m. and you yelling at me, blowing whistles, yelling directions, we got to do this, be moving. I can go to a job that I don't like for 8 hours a day to provide for my family. It's just kind of that simple. And nobody wants to be unhappy or doing something they don't want to, but sometimes you have to do what you got to do what you want to do. And so, like, just that, but there's a whole lot of stuff in sports: dedication, accountability, consistency. Like, if we're not consistent, we're not going to win this game. If I'm not dedicated to getting better, doing my part, we're not going to win this game. In football, there's 11 jobs on this field at any given time. I need everybody to do their one job. You can't do mine, I can't do yours, but if everybody does their one job, we'll be fine. So, and that's just how, I mean, that's definitely how a marriage works. Any type of partnership. So I think all of those things is what we try to extract from sports and apply it to life.
Yeah. And since we're coming off of the Super Bowl and, we saw Mahomes with Kansas City and a couple of games back where it looks like he was having some issues with, some of his teammates. And then even during the Super Bowl, there was Kelsey and the coach, and there was just
Mhm.
a lot of confusion, it looked like, but they were able to pull it together and win. What are some things that you would suggest as far as learning how to, squash your differences, come together, and then come up with the win?
It takes different things for different people, but it takes a lot of maturity, and the ability to see yourself. And when I say see yourself, know your strengths, know your weaknesses. We all have them. So, and also knowing who you're dealing with, those dynamics matter. I guarantee you, if Kelsey knew his coach would, if him and his coach didn't have a relationship and understand each other, he may not have done what he did. But be it that, he's a fiery guy, the coach is a fiery guy, but we understand each other. We can have it out and have some, I don't know the words exactly, but we can have some tough words. And it's probably like, keep me in the game, get me the ball. What are you doing? And whatever else he said. And being able to process that, because no matter the delivery, there is still a message. And a lot of us get focused on the delivery of the message versus the message. I didn't like the way you said, I mean, people say that all the time. I ain't like the way you was coming at me. And that is understandable and logical. And I've said it too before, but also remembering, let me get this out and then let's bring it back in. I know myself. Now, some people, I need to go take 5 minutes and process, and then I can come back to you. That's fine as well. But when you get into time sensitive situations, i.e., the game yesterday, you may not have that 5 minutes to process, and I got to do it now in the moment. So it's being able to recognize yourself, understanding your style, and you got to understand the situation and the circumstances and who else is involved to know your approach. Like, I know, like, some kids like to be yelled at. They don't know it, but they yearn for it. Because if I keep saying, like, hey, come on, I need you to do this, like, it's like, so they may not like to be yelled at, but they've been conditioned to receive yelling. And they now know, okay, this is a situation I got to be on high alert. Somebody's yelling, just those type of things. But just knowing, again, situations, scenarios, me being smart enough, knowing to push, when to pull. And it just takes a whole lot of knowing yourself, because I can't feel disrespected if I don't give you the power to do so. I control how I feel, even in response to whatever you said, and have the ability to control yourself. And that's why I focus, like when we do mentorship, the 5 components of emotional intelligence. The first one is self-awareness. Like, okay, I know this type of situation is going to cause me to do this. So when you move into the second piece, self-regulation, all right, now that I know this irritates me and it makes me want to fight, cuss, scream, and whatever else, let me go walk away. Let me walk away. A boiling pot, when you leave it on too high for too long, it's going to erupt. Sometimes you got to remove the heat, let it calm down, and then maybe turn it back up a little bit. So it's really self-regulating, and it's very hard to do. And especially for kids when your hormones is raging in middle school, and pride and pride is a downfall of any man. But it's hard to understand that at 16, 14, 18, even 25. It's kind of hard to understand that. So I just think people taking the time to get to know themselves and actually know what makes me happy, what doesn't. And it can make the world a better place, one person at a time, just knowing that.
Yeah, according to statistics, only 10 to 15% of people are self-aware.
It makes no that I 1000% agree with that. I didn't know the statistics, but that is troubling. And I know, like, doing the social emotional learning with the kids, people who are have emotional intelligence and can understand the 5 components: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and shoot, I'm blowing the last one: motivation, empathy, social skills. People who have a grasp and understanding of their emotional intelligence are 7 times more likely to succeed at whatever their industry is. So, there is success in maintaining myself, knowing what makes me click, knowing what makes me happy. And I think that's why we're so lost right now. And definitely as kids, because we don't know who we are. We base our happiness on tangible things. And I actually talked to a pastor yesterday, and I had always said this, like, happiness is temporary. Joy is something you can't take away from me. And so when people have joy in something, I could be having a bad day. You're gonna feel a little down, but it's not depressing like I'm gonna go home and kill myself. If I have happiness and you take that from me 2 or 3 days in a row because my lights got cut off, you're not going to be happy. I don't care how much money you got. It could have been an oversight. I got a new bank card and auto draft didn't work, and my lights got cut off this month. You know, but knowing like, okay, I'm going to handle this. I still have this, this, and this in my life. You can still have joy. Somebody take your happiness, like they control you if you give them that. So, but once you know yourself, I think you're closer to finding joy and sustaining that and not letting others ruin your day.
Yeah, I love your framework. So and what I was thinking about in my mind was that you need to expand this. So is there any plans for I just lost the word that I wanted, but to expand your business into not just sports, but all across Jefferson County?
Yeah, so we we were, I guess, built on sports because I'm an athlete, but we service just kids that are not in sports. Tutoring and mentoring, like probably more of our tutoring kids. We have more kids in tutoring that don't play sports than do. Um, and we got to tighten back up, but we started out with if you come here for training and you don't have, for middle school, high school, if you don't have a 3.0 or higher, you got to come to tutoring. And you may not even need a tutor. You just need to dedicate a little more time to your academics, which, we feel like if you can eclipse a 3.0, you're going to get academic scholarships anyway, let alone if you are talented in sports. So we service that. We go in and out of JCPS schools. We are a vendor. So we get to do social and emotional learning at schools. We did 3 or 4 last year, and we have about 4 or 5 contracts that are coming up to start next or in 2 weeks.
Hey, kudos to you. That's awesome. That's good to hear. So, if we were going to put a bow on this conversation, and you've dropped so many nuggets, I don't know, there was a couple of times I was like, oh, that was a bar. Oh, that was a bar. So, if we were to put a bow on this conversation, whether there's an athlete listening, whether there's a high school student, a coach, you got a lot of knowledge for coaches. Because one of the things that you touched on that I didn't have to ask was understanding your players. I was at a game and I had an interview with Coach Dantzler because I was at one of his games and I just saw him like light into one of his players. And so understanding, which players you can yell at, which players respond to yelling, which players don't, because I personally, if you yell at me, I'm shutting down. So I'm glad that you're able to know the differences with your players. So for the coaches that are out there listening, the athletes, and as well as high school students and even moms, like what are some of the things that you would want them to walk away with as a result of this conversation?
Yeah, I think those are multiple messages. I don't think you can wrap because you got to package those. You got to put a different bow on each one of those gifts. But like coaches wise, just continue to grow. Never stop learning. And that's from our coaches. I like going to like clinics, coaches, events. Like I'm really trying to get into going to NFL practice in these major colleges. Like I've been exposed to U of L. But like trying to travel, I want to learn new ways to impact kids, or just and for me to grow as well, get more tools in my toolbox. So coaches, continue to grow, never stop learning, and perfect your craft. Um, comma, don't have the same approach to every kid the same one, or don't give them all the same. We can't handle it. Us as adults can't handle it. Like you said, you may shut down. I thrived in it because now I had you doubt me. Now I'm gonna show you. If you talking bad to me, I'm gonna show you. That's kind of how I was. For the players, believe in yourself. I don't care if you the worst player on the team. Believe in yourself. Never stop trying to compete. I tell kids all the time in practice, like, if you just stand in the back, like, I'll probably never get to put you in. And if I don't see you in practice, I won't play you because I don't trust you. I can't trust you. I don't know what you're capable of. And I even tell my son that, and he plays on my team. Like, you're gonna have to earn everything, but never. I'm gonna say never. Continue to grow, kiddos. Continue to grow. You're not gonna be the best all in every room, and if you are the best in every room, go get a new room. Go find somebody else to compete against, because there's no person, and we can pick whoever the greatest basketball, football, baseball, tennis. They haven't always been the best. They had to grow through something. Um, Parents, don't be your kid's friend. Challenge them to get better, and not just in their sport that they're talented in. Put them, Parents, put your kids in uncomfortable situations. I'm not saying let them fail, but put them in a situation where their talent won't help them. They have to mentally think about what they're doing. And it could just be a situation, a scenario at home. And you sit there and you overshadow them. When I say overshadow, like, I'm going to monitor you from afar. I'm not going to let you fail or hurt yourself if it's a physical task, but I am going to let you struggle for a little bit. And when they turn and say, Mom, Dad, you encourage them to now think deep dive. Option A didn't work. This socket set is too big. Now let's find the right size. A lot of times we find ourselves as parents, and me and my wife talk about it all the time, and we are victims of it. Solving our kids' problems because of time constraints, because it's, Mom, why can't, just move, give it here, I'll do it. No, you're going to learn how to sweep, and you're going to sweep until it's right. I've showed you multiple times. It's just those. It is a whole lot quicker for me to take the broom from you and sweep. But also, at some point, I'm gonna be dead, and you're gonna have a wife, and she's gonna look at you terrible if you can't at least clean a little bit. So let your kids struggle. Put them in situations where they have to think multi-step process. It's just gonna develop them mentally. So when life happens, when they're 30, they're not running home to your house. Um, and the parents, your kids are not the best ever. When I say that, don't just because he joins a team doesn't mean he's going to get the ball every time. Um, and parents, stop team hopping. Now, if there's something with coaches that this coach, is just a terrible coach or whatever. But if y'all 9-1 and your son has to compete for a position, I think we froze.
I can still hear you though.
Okay, sorry. But if your team has been winning and your kid has to compete for their position, let them compete. Don't take them to another team where they're the clear-cut starter. Like, that's ruining our kids in society. Like, they think they have options. They got to have success right now. And a lot of things is a process. And that's just the reality of it. Like owning a business, you can start. I can get a EIN tonight, but how are you going to build this business? What's your product going to look like? All of those things matter. So I think the more that we get our kids acclimated to adversity, the better and the longer they can go and be.
Yeah, I love how you wrapped all of that up. Acclimated to adversity. Anthony, thank you so much for your time today. And I just loved all of the gems that you dropped. And out there, it's okay to be uncomfortable, because when we are uncomfortable, that's the situation where we begin to grow. We
Yep.
don't grow when we are always in comfortable situations, because then we're just acting out of routine. So it's okay to be uncomfortable. Until next time on the Dana Spencer Show, thank you so much for watching.